Imagine yourself, after 30 years of an apparently happy marriage, facing the greatest challenge of your life, a diagnosis of advanced stage cancer. Now, imagine returning home, seeking comfort in the arms of the person who has been by your side for 3 decades, only to discover the most painful betrayal. This is the story of Dave, a man who, in addition to fighting a devastating illness, finds himself forced to confront the reality of a broken love. The discovery not only tests his emotional strength, but also pushes him on a journey of self-discovery and redemption. In this video, we delve deeply into Dave's experience, exploring the themes of betrayal, the struggle against cancer, and the power of human resilience. Prepare to follow a narrative that, although filled with moments of pain and reflection, also offers glimpses of hope and the possibility of renewal. Dave was sitting on the edge of the hospital bed, the cold glare of the fluorescent light barely touching the edges of his tired countenance. The doctor, a middle-aged man with eyes that carried the weight of countless difficult news, placed a comforting hand on his shoulder. "Dave, I'm sorry. The diagnosis is advanced stage cancer." The words fell upon him like an avalanche, suffocating any spark of hope that may have survived the wear and tear of exams and tests. Dave looked out the window where the grey sky seemed to reflect his inner turmoil. "And now, doctor, what do I do?" His voice was a whisper, almost absorbed by the constant hum of the machines around him. The doctor, choosing his words carefully, replied, "We'll discuss your treatment options. There are paths we can follow, but it's important that you have support. Talk to your family, Dave. They need to be with you now." Dave nodded, his thoughts swirling around Sarah, the woman who had been his rock for so many years. How could he tell her? How would she react to knowing that the man with whom she had shared an entire life now faced a battle they both feared? As Dave made his way back home, the doctor's words echoed in his mind, mingling with a cacophony of thoughts and emotions. The journey, once familiar and comforting, now seemed strangely alien. Each mile traveled inexorably, bringing him to confront his new reality. He rehearsed in his mind how to start the conversation with Sarah, rehearsing phrases that sounded empty even to him. "Sarah, I have cancer." No, that was too direct. "Honey, we need to talk about something serious." Maybe, but it still didn't feel right. The uncertainty consumed him, but the need to share his burden and seek solace in his wife's arms was the only certainty he possessed. As he parked the car, Dave took a deep breath, trying to muster the courage needed to face what was to come. He imagined Sarah's embrace, the warmth of her touch, a safe harbor in the storms that loomed. With each step towards the front door, Dave felt the weight of the world on his shoulders, but also the hope of finding refuge in the arms of the woman he loved. The key turned in the lock with a familiar click, but the sound seemed exceptionally loud in the silence that enveloped him. Dave stepped inside, his heart beating erratically, a mixture of anticipation and dread filling every fiber of his being. The silence of the house, once welcoming, now seemed to carry an ominous portent. He walked down the hallway, his footsteps echoing against the walls, until an unexplainable intuition guided him to the slightly ajar bedroom door. The scene before his eyes unleashed a storm of emotions. There was Sarah, the woman with whom he had shared countless moments of joy and pain, entwined in the arms of another man. The sight was like a physical blow, knocking the breath out of him, freezing him in place. "Sarah?" His voice, almost inaudible, broke the silence, carrying with it the weight of an unimaginable betrayal. The couple broke apart abruptly, the look of guilt on Sarah's face cutting deeper than any word could. Dave wanted to scream, cry, question, but found himself immobilized, his pain so deep that it transcended verbal expression. In that moment, the raw truth of the betrayal enveloped him, a veil of disbelief and sadness muffling the sounds around him. Dave found himself adrift in a sea of silence, each second stretching for an eternity as he processed the scene before him. The betrayal, so palpable and devastating, seemed to consume all the oxygen from the room, leaving him struggling for each breath. He watched Sarah, the woman he had loved unconditionally, searching her face for any sign of remorse, any spark of the love they had shared. But what he found was a look he barely recognized, marked by a mixture of fear, guilt, and cold determination. "How could you?" The question escaped his lips, not as an accusation, but as a lament, a desperate plea for some explanation that could make sense in his now shattered world. Sarah opened her mouth to respond, but the words seemed to fail, lost somewhere between intention and expression. The room, once filled with memories of a love Dave thought was eternal, now resembled a courtroom, judging the end of a chapter of their lives he never wished to close. The conversation that followed was a whirlwind of emotions and unspoken words that finally found their way to the surface. Sarah, her voice trembling, tried to explain her actions, her words sounding more like tattered excuses than legitimate justifications. I felt so lost, Dave. With all this happening, I just needed to escape, to feel something different." Her words evaporated into the air, leaving a trail of sadness and despair. Dave listened, but Sarah's words seemed distant, muffled by the deafening sound of his own broken heart. He wanted to scream, to demand more from her, but what was left? What words could mend what had been irrevocably broken? The betrayal had dug a chasm between them, a void no excuse could fill, and deep down, Dave knew that this moment, this painful turning point, marked the end not only of his marriage, but also of the person he thought he knew and loved. Enveloped in a cocoon of disillusionment and hurt, Dave tried to navigate the turbulent waters of the ensuing days. The house, once a home filled with laughter and shared love, now resembled a museum of memories, each room echoing with ghosts of a past that seemed to belong to another life. He would find himself stopping in front of photographs, tracing with his gaze the outlines of smiles he no longer recognized. The bitterness of Sarah's betrayal tinted every memory, turning sweetness to ash. "Where did we lose our way?" he would murmur to himself, seeking answers amidst the oppressive silence. The struggle against cancer, once a challenge to be faced together, now became a solitary path Dave tread, each step a reminder of the support and love he thought he had by his side. Dave's decision to isolate himself in the cabin was a cry for peace, a desperate desire to heal the open wounds caused not only by cancer, but by the betrayal that robbed him of what little hope he had left. Surrounded by the vastness of nature, he sought refuge from the internal storms that beset him. The cabin, with its rustic simplicity, offered a stark contrast to the life he had left behind, a life now marred by profound disillusions and the pain of an unimaginable betrayal. There, Dave found a silence that was both balm and challenge. Away from the world he knew, confronted with his own company and the thoughts that pursued him, he began to tread the tortuous path of self-discovery. Who am I now? The question echoed through the cabin walls, mingling with the sounds of nature outside. Dave realized that the search for answers would require more than physical isolation. It would demand an inner journey through pain, loss, and eventually acceptance. In this refuge, where solitude was both his companion and his enemy, Dave allowed himself to delve into the depths of his being. The nature surrounding the cabin became a source of inspiration and paradoxically of solace. The unbroken cycle of life manifested itself in the changing seasons that cared not for human tribulations, in the animals following their basic instincts, and in the plants that sprouted, bloomed, and died, only to be reborn again. This relentless cycle of nature served as a reminder to Dave that despite everything, life goes on. He forced himself to venture out of the cabin for long walks, using this time to reflect and sometimes to simply empty his mind and absorb the tranquility around him. The crunch of leaves underfoot, the whisper of the wind through the trees, and the occasional encounter with wildlife became moments of deep reflection and, surprisingly, of healing. Amidst the solitude, Dave discovered a resilience he didn't know he possessed, finding strength in the deep roots of the trees and the vastness of the sky. The nights in the cabin, however, were a test of Dave's sanity. The darkness brought with it a stillness that amplified the noises of his mind, turning solitude into an almost palpable presence. He would find himself conversing with shadows, trying to fill the void left by Sarah, sometimes losing himself in the thin boundary between reality and the memories that insisted on visiting him. In those hours, the specter of cancer and betrayal became his only companion, whispering reminders of his struggle and loss. But it was also during those long nights of introspection that Dave began to perceive the importance of forgiveness, not as a favor to those who had hurt him, but as a gift to himself. Gradually, anger and sadness gave way to a deeper understanding of his own vulnerability and human nature. This process of self-examination and acceptance became the foundation upon which he began to rebuild his identity, shattered by illness and disillusionment. Writing, initially a mere outpouring for Dave, transformed into his bridge to the outside world, a way to give voice to the feelings and thoughts that struggled for space in his heart. Each written word was like a heartbeat, vital and raw, capturing not only the pain of his journey, but also the glimpses of beauty and hope he found in the most unexpected moments. The cabin, with its weathered wooden table and view of the vast forest, became the setting where his story took shape. As the days passed, the pages began to fill with more than just simple reflections. They became witnesses to a transformation, of a man confronting his inner demons and seeking redemption through the expression of his soul. This work, though born of solitude and struggle, promised to be his legacy, a light to guide others through the darkness, showing that even in the depths of despair, it is possible to find a path to light. Over time, Dave began to write, first as a way to cope with his feelings, but gradually his words began to take the form of a story, his story. Every written word was an attempt to make sense of his pain, to transform his experience into something that could somehow help others face their own battles. Although cancer continued to threaten his existence, Dave found in writing a form of immortality, a legacy that could survive far beyond his physical struggle. And you, what would you do in Dave's place? The betrayal and the battle against a serious illness put to the test not only your strength, but also your ability to forgive and find peace amidst the storm. Dave's journey shows us that even in the darkest of circumstances, there is room for growth, self-discovery, and, eventually, healing. This story is an invitation to reflect on the challenges we face and how they shape who we are. Comment on what you would do, and don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel to continue following more stories like this. Your interaction is very important to us, and we are eager to share even more narratives that touch the heart and provoke reflection. I'll see you in a new story. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel to support its continuous growth and share the content to reach more people and share these experiences. Until next time.